Explain like I'm 5. How fast can food pass through the body? I have read somewhere that it is normal to defecate about once a day. This leads me to think that it takes about 24 hours for food to pass through the body under normal circumstances. Now let's say you eat some bad sushi that triggers the runs within an hour. When you then defecate, is it the actual sushi that comes out, or is it just the food you ate before the sushi? Also, how fast could food theoretically go from mouth to anus? It usually takes between 24 and 72 hours for food to go through your body. When you eat something bad and your body decides everything must go, it can be a whole lot quicker. But it will still be first in, first out, so the food you ate before the sushi will be expelled first. And then the sushi. For the fastest time I can find references for 10 hours, but no hard sources, so take that with a grain of salt. Twice this year I've ate a bunch of okra that didn't sit well with me, and I blasted their seeds out in about 2 hours. I have IBS, which can cause severe, instant diarrhea. I have personally had to stop eating a salad because I was starting to get stomach cramps. And within 20 minutes, the salad had gone all the way through and out the other end. The lettuce was still green. So, in severe cases, you can go from mouth to toilet bowl in under 20 minutes. It's quite painful and I don't recommend it. Just for the record, I swallowed a cherry pit 4 nights ago. And I just pooped it out. I've made 4 poops since swallowing the pit. Maths right there. Just careful not to mix up the ideas of time and rate. That's just to say, just because you poop every 24 hours doesn't mean it takes food 24 hours to go from in to out. For example, a factory might take 20 days to make a car. But with an assembly line 20 cars long, it can still pump out 1 car per day. That doesn't mean all the parts went from the shelf to the car in 1 day. With the right means of delivery, most food can pass through the average human body in a few milliseconds. I have IBSD and I can honestly say I've both drank red Kool-Aid and had red diarrhea 15 minutes later and ate a burrito with corn and had the corn exit my body 20 minutes later. That's why I currently only eat 1 small meal a day, which always immediately leads to a trip to the bathroom. If I eat blueberries for breakfast, typically they are coming out of me 3-5 hours later. But I think I'm different from most. I typically have 2-3 bowel movements a day, not diarrhea. Just normal BMs. If I eat collard greens, they're in the toilet within an hour. My body simply can't process it. Like the greens will be completely intact. For me, transit time is about 10 to 12 hours. Usually have 2 or 3 movements a day. The first time my brother had Indian food, it took him about 10 minutes after we finished the meal. And were driving home. He said drive faster, and it was a photo finish in the 5 minutes it took me to get home. He is lactose intolerant, but it has never stopped him from eating dairy as much as he wants. If you eat bad sushi or some other bad food, the body's first line of defense is to empty the stomach before any food can leave. The body does this by vomiting. This will remove most if not all of the bad toxins. If something happens to leave the stomach, your body opens up the floodgates to empty the intestines as quickly as possible. Typically it can take a few hours 4-6 for symptoms of diarrhea to begin. But that can vary depending on what your body is trying to deal with. But if your body wants rid of something, it will do everything it can to get rid of the bad stuff. My wife has colitis and she will poop out barely digested food after a few hours. It's a serious condition. If your body reacts, it can be in and out. For example, I cannot eat my local Hardee's. It is from table to toilet less than 2 hours. And last time I tried, I saw undigested fries in what can charitably be called stool. Dunno, but I bought bagels this morning and saw the return of some poppy seeds a few hours later. Science in this thread says 1072 hours. My body says 1-3 hours after you eat that you're going to see it in the bowl. Confirmed with both corn and beets. Red stool post-consumption. No consumption of either within 72 hours of expulsion. Incredible. Mind-blowing. My superpower is gastro-evacuation. Obviously not with all food. These were freak occurrences. But likely the fastest food has ever gone through the Camp Cosmos highway system. I don't know if I'm proud or ashamed to share this online. Thanks Internet. I've eaten jalapeno poppers and pooped out jalapeno chunks an hour later. They couldn't be from last time I ate jalapeno poppers because it had been months. Depends on whether you ate something that disagrees with you. If your body thinks you've ingested poison, you're going to flush everything out as soon as possible. It takes about 6 hours for food to hit your large intestine. But then if your guts want it out, they can just speed it along in liquid form. You absorb essentially no nutrients from it if that happens. So minimum about 5 hours. It's going to vary from person to person and depend on what you've eaten. You can always test it by eating some corn and wait. Also, how fast could food theoretically go from mouth to anus? Of the same person? My coworker thinks that the big hot poop he eats after a spicy meal is that same food coming out. Then, he got really annoyed when I tried to tell him it wasn't the same food. I know my body like. Use common sense. You would starve to death if that was the case. Because your body wouldn't have time to absorb the nutrients. But, he also thinks the moon landing was faked, so I've personally confirmed passages as fast as 4-5 hours and the gastroenterologist didn't seem to be concerned about it. You should shit every time you eat. It's a push system, so when something comes in, something should go out. And we hold about 3.5 meals in our digestive tract. So this morning's poo is yesterday's breakfast or lunch. I can time it based on the frequency I eat corn. Seen it 6 hours after and also 24 hours after. Guess it just depends. Try eating a cob of roasted corn and then timing when the last kernel shows up in your poo. Should be an easy to see timer. I first read this, how can fast food pass through the body? And thought to myself, yeah, no. That's a good question. I imagine some canned vegetables could pass through a person really quickly depending on how fast it was launched. How fast do you want food to pass through your body? Tears of joy, tears of joy, tears of joy. There are foods and beverages that can influence the duration. There are natural diuretics and natural antidiuretics. So it can be anywhere from minutes to days. Wow. I've always been curious about this myself. But couldn't figure out how to ask that. What I can't figure out is how you can eat something and if doesn't agree with you. And it comes out as all liquid 20 minutes later. I've clocked myself at under 3 hours. But I've got half a digestive tract. And none of the rest remaining is too pleased.